you have to come from an abundance mentality, that there's going to be a buyer for every house, that there's going to be an agent for every seller, right? And that's just how it comes. And so you will find you're going to find your people.
Going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to The Property Pod.
That's right, crew. We are joined by a superstar of real estate today, Tara Christensen of the REA Group. She's a digital strategist. Tara, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, not the digital strategist as well.
Yes, the top dog.
Why not?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say top dog. Very low on the food chain.
No, thank you so much for coming and giving us your time. Everyone in the office is really excited to have you around and kind of pick your brain with things. But we thought, let's get you in the studio before they get a chance to tire you out. They'll have heaps of questions. But Pat's organised you to come in and give us some tips for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We actually met back in Imman in Las Vegas just before COVID, 2019 it would have been, I reckon.
Sure.
Well, I haven't been to one since COVID, so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
I've been blessed to obviously chat with you in the past and some really cool ideas. But for the people that don't know who you are, how about a bit of a background of, how you got into the industry, how you've ended up here, all of that type of...
Awesome. Well, I won't give you my full background because it's quite long. But I have a Texan accent because I lived in West Texas for 4 years, so I say things like y'all and all y'all, and that'll come out. I was born in Wisconsin. I have a law degree, and I started in real estate in 2006 in the United States. And so my mama brought me in, as mamas are wont to do. And I was a full-time real estate agent from 2006 to 2012. I was licensed in Washington, D.C. and Virginia. And I did that for 6 years. And then I moved into being the technology and training director of Century 21 Redwood Realty. And they started with about 3 offices. And when I left them, they had 13 offices and about 600 people. And now I think they're actually even bigger. They're fantastic.
Unreal.
That blows my mind when you think about real estate agencies in Australia versus America, just the sheer volume of people that work from them.
Yeah.
Like 600 employees at one firm is just madness.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, we're not employees, though. We're independent contractors.
Self-contractors.
So it's even more, it's like, take your wet cats and then multiply them by a lot and then send them in all different directions and then try to herd them. That's pretty much what real estate's a lot like sometimes from a principal perspective.
So tell, that's amazing, all kind of the stuff you've done in the States. And how do you find yourself here in our little island of Tasmania and Australia, and you're on the other side of the world?
It was a boy.
Oh, it's a love story. Oh, I love this. Yeah, tell us more about this.
Except he's 19 years older than me, so I don't think he's actually a boy. But,
we'll stick with boy.
He's at heart, he probably is. So, absolutely.
We all are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, no, he's the one. He's Queensland born and bred, and he ain't moving. So, it was
make a choice.
Yeah, it was make a choice, and so I came over. But it's great because he's in real estate. We both love digital trends and digital marketing, so we have lots to talk about all the time.
Yeah.
And so he basically introduced me to people all over Australia and New Zealand, and I did gigs with him, and then I did gigs by myself, and talking to REIs and doing things like this, meeting with agencies, and
for sure.
And it was awesome because I get to learn the differences between real estate in the United States versus real estate here, and
there's so many differences.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't think there is, but it's just mind blowing. Like when we were in Imman in Vegas, we actually went out for lunch, and there was a few Australians and a few Americans at the table, and just the conversation over the course of the lunch as to how we do it here versus how they do it in America is just crazy. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we have our agents can do dual agencies, so they represent buyers, they represent sellers, so that's part of it. Auctions aren't a big thing for us, so except for really high end properties or properties basically that have gone that don't cost a lot of money, I guess is the best way of putting it, right? It's being sold on the courthouse steps, basically. And, so those things I had to wrap my head around. Vendors, like talking about sellers as vendors. In America, vendors are our tradies. So, like, I'm like, blah, 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 vendors. And people are like, why would they do that? And I'm like, right, okay, learning. So all of those things have just been, and of course, laws, all the different laws and everything. Y'all can market so much better, though.
Okay, yeah, so that's a really interesting, because trying to follow digital trends like this might be a way of getting us onto some of the stuff you do, but for myself, doing all the marketing stuff through here is I'm often going through your TikToks or your Instagram Reels and all these things and trying to find, real estate tips or real estate marketing. And like all the things I come across is really daggy and boring. And I'm just like, oh man, like how come we're doing it so much better? Like why is it? Oh no, you go.
My guess is probably coming back to independent contractor versus agency aspect potentially.
It's less that, and it's more about something called the Fair Housing Act.
Okay.
So the fair housing laws and things like that, which is, don't discriminate.
Yep.
And that can get very broad in some places. And so you have to be very careful about the ways that you talk about properties and talk about yourself.
Interesting.
You can't talk about crime rates. You don't say safe neighborhood. You can't say things like that.
Right.
You can say, here's a website that you might want to look that neighborhood up on. Or schools. You can't say that's a great school or not a good school, because that actually can get into...
is this like a legal area of like maybe being sued? Or
Massive.
Okay.
Massive. It's called steering. And so what that means is that I can steer you away from a neighborhood.
Yeah, wow.
But sometimes it's usually lower income neighborhoods sometimes. And so then, if you're trying to, if you find that you're keeping a certain demographic in or out of a certain place. And there is a lot of, as racial tension and things that are happening over there. And so that's part of that, to try to mitigate a little bit of that.
Yeah, okay. So, and this is across the whole spectrum. I didn't think this is where our conversation would go, but this is super interesting. So, across the whole country, or is it just different sections?
So that's a national act.
Yeah.
And then certain states can get actually more specific. So even like Washington, D.C., it extends to sexuality as well. So, and so that can be, especially for LGBTQ, just that kind of demographic and making sure that you're not discriminating.
So that must make it incredibly hard to market property for sale and promote.
You're like, hey, it's got a roof.
So it's straight up like facts, no descriptive, no gender oriented masculinity, feminine sort of words. It's just almost anything that you go selling the sizzle, as I'd say, is almost walking on eggshells.
Absolutely. You really have
that's
to.
fascinating.
Yeah, you really have to think about it. So like I still actually work for an email marketing company over in the States. And one of the things that I have to do, because our writers for the most part aren't real estate background, is to make sure that they're not including certain things that could come back and bite them in a legal fashion.
So we have a content creator that works for us here at 414. He's based in the Philippines, and his descriptive text is so descriptive. Like we would be taking 80% of his words out. I reckon to be able to actually implement that.
God, I remember when I was renovating my house, when we ripped up the kitchen, on the floor underneath it had an old real estate guide from the 50s. It's great because it just, the way obviously that they'd sold it was very, very different at the time, because they just got straight to the point. For one of them, it just said, owners desperate. Must sell. Brilliant. It's like, guess I'll buy that. There was another one, actually just straight up said a gentleman's lounge. Like it was full on, the gender roles, no description. Like, that's pretty cool.
With or without Paul.
Funnily, John is listing one just next week or the week after with pole and heels.
That is true.
You're not far off there.
So that's exactly right. So I suppose we'd be careful of how we describe that. It's a fitness pole. Isn't it? A fitness pole.
You never know.
Moving from as a sales agent, as in the States, then compared to, you'd said that obviously Australia would do it quite a little bit differently. How do you mean? Like, is that in terms of the way that the websites and the resources that are used, or?
So websites, you don't have a multiple list system, so that's something that, we're used to having lots of information out there already, similar to Portal, obviously, from realestate.com.au, but, they have Zillow over there, very similar. But the thing is, what feeds that is the multiple list system, and that is individual to each state and provides a lot of information for people that a lot of agents have access to, right? And so I had to get used to people not having a lot of access necessarily to information that's going on in a neighborhood unless it's sold or unless they've driven around and looked for those, the signs and everything else like that, or gone on realestate.com.au or similar. And then also the VPA. So we don't have vendor paid advertising. Marketing usually comes out of our own pockets. That's why commissions are higher in the United States a lot of times, is because we're actually paying for marketing up front.
So when you're picking to take a listing to market, you've got to feel pretty confident that it's saleable.
Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing is that makes you actually, I think, at least in my opinion, this is only my opinion, is that I think it makes you more experimental sometimes in your marketing, because you need it to stand out, but you're also trying to distinguish yourself from all of those other real estate agents that are out there, right? And so you really have to, you're trying new things and you're not afraid to try new things. But the thing is, it's okay because it's your money. It's not somebody else's money, right? And you don't have to wait for your broker, necessarily your principal, to invest in something. You do it yourself and then figure out, a lot of times. So franchises definitely, invest, obviously, and independence and everybody. But a lot of times it's actually, some of the times it's the individual agents who are driving that instead of waiting for that top down to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
What I'd be interested to see then as well, I suppose locals are familiar with what the average commission's here, but what does a commission structure in the States look like?
It's you have a buyer's agent side and then a seller agent side, except the seller pays for both sides.
Yes.
Right.
So it's like double stacking.
Yeah. So which I know is controversial. I get into heated discussions with my partner about this all the time, and it's actually being investigated right now.
Okay.
So this is actually, the whole commission structure right now is actually under investigation in the United States at the moment. So who knows? It could change. But at the moment, right now, seller, part of your listing contract, let's say for a number, and that's another thing you're not allowed to talk about is commissions. So we'll say an average between 5% and 7%.
Gotcha.
To on your listing agreement. And so you'd actually agree to that up front. You're going to pay this, and then you actually detail, okay, that's going to be 3% to me, 3.5 to a buyer, or vice versa. And then it goes from there. And the thing is, what people forget though is also, a third of that goes to taxes. Then another third usually goes back to recoup your marketing costs on the property, and then you get whatever's left over. So, people go, oh, you make so much money. And I'm like, no.
I think always good at look at the net. Always look at the net.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
So obviously being quite lucky in the fact that you've experienced the Australian market and the American marketplace, what are some of these, different trends and unique marketing options that people are starting to suggest to their clients to potentially do? Or, what is it that someone listening to our show should be thinking about if they were planning to sell their home? What is an element that they should add to their marketing?
Well, if they haven't embraced video, they, and I mean in all aspects, longer form video as well as short form video. So the longer form video to really showcase the property, and finding new ways to showcase that. But then also the shorter form ones to really grab people's attention in those different spaces online, because obviously short form video is where it's at the moment on all platforms.
Definitely.
So I'm seeing people really, just really kind of embracing that wholeheartedly in different ways, using it as sneak peeks, or, there's an agent in the States who, one of the great things she does is that she actually is a stager as well as an agent. So what she does is she actually does like short clips of her staging different pieces of the home, posts it online. Half the time she actually sells it before she lists it, because people are watching and going, oh, now I can finally see what that room's supposed to be. I'd want to know more about the property. And, of course, everyone wants the fresh deal, right? They don't want to have to wait. And so a lot of times she's actually selling it before she even gets there. So, people don't think about that. We think, oh, no, we've got to wait until everything's perfect and everything's, magic. But the thing is, a lot of times you just have to show people the potential and really get them interested in that property in different ways. And that's some of the ways of doing it.
Yeah. I guess with her too, is it rather than trying to present a picture perfect part of the process, she's just like, well, come with us. Come with that
Absolutely.
journey, because the property's already for sale, but it doesn't have to look like the painting on the wall.
No, and the thing is, absolutely, there's the what we call the crate and barrel effect, or I guess it's a wheel and barrow over here effect, where everything is supposed to look, just absolutely turnkey, perfect, right? And we had that for a long time, but I think COVID's really helped us with that whole impression of perfection.
Yeah.
That nothing has to be perfect all the time. And the thing is, people do want to see behind the scenes. People do want to see the journey. They don't want to just see, and magic, here it is. Because that gives them ideas as well. And so if you are maybe a potential seller sitting on the fence going, no, I've got to wait until my house is this, you're showing them, look, we can actually get through this process a lot faster and probably for a lot less money than you might have expected. And by the way, there's buyers out there.
Interesting.
Who will actually invest in it.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to potentially look at marketing a property for sale, is to not just, wait until it's show ready. I can think of straight away, we quite often meet clients and, the house needs some renovation work done to it, or, they can't go to market because there's too much stuff in the house and they have to declutter. Maybe even talking to potential clients about a before and after experience to promote the property and walk through all the different things that gets the house ready along the way.
Yeah, no, but I love those little details too. Like we drove past one of our listings at the moment. At the front of it's a big skip bin. As they're removing the rubbish. That's what you're like on a different scale. If you're just bringing your audience with you along that journey, it's like, it's coming up. It's coming up. Here we are. Like, there's a skip bin. Usually we find that if you're doing rubbish removal, they can take care of it. It's probably going to cost somewhere between $500 to $1,500. Why sit there and do a bunch of tip runs when you can just get these guys to sort it out for you? It's going to take half the time. And I guess that's sort of where you're referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. Or have a tradie walk through the house. These are the little things that actually add up at the end of the day for a buyer's impression or anything else. They're going to look at that and say it's $1,200 to fix that, when all I know is it's tightening of a screw on the doorknob.
So a lot of the marketing that you're starting to see is more experience type marketing. It's not just like spending big money on big ads anymore. It's telling a story and doing that journey with them,
and not being afraid. If TikTok scares a lot of people, but the thing is, if that's kind of where an audience is looking in your area, then maybe that's something to explore. Or YouTube advertising. Sometimes people go, oh well, I don't know that much about that, or the thing is, neither do most of the people who started it. And you don't necessarily have to go all in like the first time, right? You just experiment with it, and that's the big thing around it. It's just you just experiment.
Yeah, it's such an interesting take.
Well, like from your position now, like digital strategist, what's experimentation look like for you?
It's just for me, it's just a bunch of research gathering. Honestly, it's just trying to figure out what makes sense now, because anything that I read, look at, like I have 10 emails that are sitting in my inbox. They're all from myself.
Right.
They've all got links to
stuff,
all sorts of stuff.
I'm glad I'm not the only
same thing.
to myself.
And then my Chrome browser on my work computer is also a nightmare as well. Like I had to put on an extension that suspends all of them so that like it doesn't eat my chew through all my apps.
Great thinking.
Yeah. Because but that's what I do is I sit, and then the next step is going, if I'm sitting there as a real estate professional and I'm busy, the market's changing, I've got to think about what makes sense for me and my time, but also for my clients.
Sure.
And is this something that I'm going to be able to sell 100% to my clients, or even 90% to my clients? Or do I not understand it enough? And then if I go, okay, if I don't understand it enough, what do I need to learn so that I can actually then convey that? And then I try to simplify that for people so that anybody can really understand what that means. And then I try to find examples of that so that I can show you what that could look like as well. Because I think a lot of times we're more visual people, and so we need to kind of understand, like, how does that fit into my workflow, or does that fit with what I'm doing? We get overwhelmed sometimes when we see so much marketing, right? Because there's so many ways to do it, and there's so many big personalities that are out there that sometimes take all of the limelight and all of the spotlight, and we think, well, if we can't do it like them, then we can't do it at all.
Or it must cost too much for us to even never do it.
Absolutely. Or I'm an introvert, right? Like, I know it's hard to believe. People don't
I thought that I was like,
Yeah.
I'll put the laugh track on.
and it's funny because when you meet me, it's because like, well, this is fine because to me this is an intimate group, right? So
Sure.
that I'm
Yeah.
having a discussion. Even when I'm presenting, though, like I just do it because that's my job, right?
Yeah.
Then I go back into my car or into my room and I sit, right? I can't be that big personality that's
All the
like
time.
always on all
Sure.
the time on camera because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
Right at the end of the day. And the thing is, you're going to meet me. And if I'm not the same person that you just saw online, you're going to be like, whoa, real estate agents are being shady again. Or,
Yeah.
aren't being real again.
You're just putting up a face. This is not who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can find that beautiful combination of who we are and maybe just exaggerate that a little bit, right? Because that's
A little bit oomph.
yeah, just put a little more pizzazz into it, a little more jazz hands at the end of the day. I think then that's really what comes out. And the thing is, if you're just one of those people who just wants to sit there and talk like this, and that's who you are, then maybe that's who you are. And but the thing is, you have to come from an abundance mentality that there's going to be a buyer for every house, that there's going to be an agent for every seller,
Yep.
right? And that's just how it comes. And so you will find you're going to find your people.
Yeah. Well, one thing I take from that though is that even though you say introvert, it's not like how you're interacting with us now is too far removed from always.
absolutely.
And I suppose the other when you're looking at designing your own marketing and who you are in that sense, it's like don't go 180, maybe 10% above your normal energy point, because I know sometimes you see agents where it became a very big trend in Australia to add a lot of humour into it, and I suppose the States was the same.
Oh, yeah.
And he just went, you should just not be doing that. That is horrific.
That's what I thought about your early videos.
Oh,
John.
exactly. It's no different. It's no different at all. But you just see like that's way too far removed from who they would be on a day-to-day basis. But having that little bit of an extra energy, I suppose, I would assume is that you're saying is that allows people to disconnect a little bit better.
And the thing is, look, if those are the people that you want to attract, are the people who are attracted to that and will invest in you because of that, because that's really what they're doing is they're investing in you when they hire you, then that's fine. But just know that you probably are then, letting go of another part of the population
Sure.
who isn't attracted to that and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And so, for me, it's just I bump things up just a little bit, right? And I figure what's a little bit outside of my comfort zone? What's
Rather
that?
than a long way out of the zone and just
Exactly.
being like I'm a fish in deep water floundering.
Precisely. So what's my stretch point? And once I figure that stretch point out, then I'm like, okay, do I like it? No. I don't like video. I don't like doing video, but it's so important.
Yeah.
Sure.
So important that I just do it. Do I watch it? No. Do I send it to my partner to watch? Yes.
And as you walk away.
Exactly. And as soon as I hear my voice, I walk out of the room.
I think that's all of us.
And then I walk back in, and then I'm like, okay, give me constructive feedback.
Yeah.
And that's how I learn.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, look, I think we've taken up enough of your time there, but thank you so much for coming in and talking us through some of this. I think we could go on little deep dive tangents all over the place, but I know your time's really valuable, and we really appreciate you coming in and having a chat with us.
All good. Anytime.
Thank you very much.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Tara.
Thanks,
Really
Tara.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Excellent. Bye.
You have been listening to The Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.